Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. Because this happened late last week. You and I had already gone on vacation. But I got a text about this from somebody who's like, can you believe they did this? And I'm on vacation brain. I'm trying to ignore everything. And I'm like, are we serious? Luke Fickell was extended through the 2031 season. Now, this is a standard procedure at Wisconsin. They did it with a couple of other sport coaches at the same time. So it wasn't like there was a big meeting about let's just extend Luke Fickell. This is what they do. It is their procedure to basically roll over coaches to whatever their original contract length was. In Luke Fickell's case, it's 7 seasons. So they don't do it automatically. It's not his contract to do it automatically. Like their board has to meet and they have to say that, they're meeting acceptable standards. So I'm going to ask you this, Ari. Was last season acceptable if you're Wisconsin? It was the first losing season since 2001.
Yeah, like this is a Wisconsin discussion, but this is just like a coaching discussion, right? Like it's like what does a coach you have this, like I feel like one of your rules to life, and we're going to bring that back this offseason, and we're going to really lean into that. But your rule for life is don't extend a coach that doesn't have other people trying to hire him, right? Like is that an Andy Staples rule for life?
Like, we'll make the verbal flow chart here. Like you asked these questions, like I'm thinking of extending my coach. So I'll ask you a question. Okay. Who else is trying to hire your coach? Well, no one. Then the answer is no. Like you don't have to move down the flow chart. No, do not extend him. You don't need to.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Is like, if you don't extend your coach when you have an opportunity to do it, and then they turn out to be awesome, are they less likely in the future to take the extension next time?
No, because then you offer them giant money because they earned it.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I don't know. Do people get like underlying resentment towards their program for not appreciating them? I don't know. But like, I think that like the thing with Wisconsin right now is that we are behind schedule. And I don't know, we were in the car driving somewhere. I don't remember where we were, but you were working on the 2025 hot list story. Remember when we were talking through this in the car? Did we
the hot seat list? Yeah.
The hot seat list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we get to Fickell, and was that a thought?
He's in my too expensive to fire.
Okay, but if he wasn't
his buyout at this point. And now here's the thing about the extension. And you say, well, it's a phantom extension. It's not a phantom extension because of the way the contract is written. So he also got a 1-year extension last year because this is a standard procedure that they do every year. So he's under contract for 7 seasons. He's going to coach this season. So then after this season, he'll be under contract for 6. He's due 80% of the remainder of his contract if he gets fired at any point here. His average salary is like $7.7 or $7.8 million. So what's 80% of $7.7 million? We're a bad at math podcast, but I have my calculator.
Probably. Was it $5.5 million?
$6.2 million, Ari.
That's electric.
So they just put themselves on the hook for $6.2 more million if this doesn't work. Like, that is real money.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question, I guess, here, too, is, like, how confident are you that he's still the guy? Like, that's the thing. Like, should you have lost confidence in that?
Well, I have another question, too, because remember what I said when he got hired, that clearly Wisconsin was trying to make a big move and had convinced Luke Fickell that he could win there because he had a good job at Cincinnati. Luke Fickell is not despite the name, he's not a fickle person. Like, he was not leaving Cincinnati for just any old job. Like, he felt like he had a pretty good thing going. So I think they convinced him that he would be given the resources to win there. I'm looking at their roster, and I don't think he's been given the resources to win from an NIL standpoint because they'd have better players if he had been.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very difficult, too, because it's like in this new world, it's like, how much is your roster not being good enough the coach's fault, and how much is it the NIL's fault? You know, and it's like kind of hard to parse through that because like 5 years ago, if you had a bad roster, it was the coach's fault, period.
Yeah. So I'm not completely out on Luke Fickell yet because you got the rev share coming in. They're going to have money. to spend. And if he spends it wisely, then maybe they're okay. But I don't like the way things are trending the first couple of years. Like that does not feel good. It's not representative of what he was like at Cincinnati. Like it appears they got worse. And I realized the quarterback that they brought in, Tyler Van Dyke, they thought was going to be the guy. He gets hurt in week 3, excuse me. And so it wasn't what you hoped it would be, but you've already, you fired Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator. You're bringing Jeff Grimes. So now I think that represents to me, because Jeff Grimes is an offensive line coach by trade, that you are deciding to lean into what Wisconsin used to do really well. So I hope that's the case. But look at this schedule, Ari. So here's a stretch: Alabama, Maryland, Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois. And Minnesota is not easy. Minnesota beat the crap out of them last year.
And it's on the road in November, 11/29. Yeah. That's a real kick in the knackers, as the kids say.
Yeah, I realize it's your policy. And that's what the Wisconsin people keep saying. Everything I've read about this on the internet, it's our policy. Maybe your policy's bad. Maybe you need to change your policy, because the first losing season since 2001 is not acceptable progress. And if you don't extend him this year, it's probably not going to hurt his feelings, and you don't put yourself on the hook for an additional $6.3 million down the road. If he turns it around and wins 11 games this year, then extend him 2 years.
If you are a coach like Fickell, who is supposed to be a huge get for your school when you landed him, how much does what they did at their previous stop hold weight in terms of your accomplishments and bought into like whatever contract situation you have at your new place? Did I ask that clearly?
After 2 years, none. It shouldn't. Yeah. And here's the other thing about the Luke Fickell situation. What happened at Cincinnati, he was great. Who else was at Cincinnati with him?
Yeah, there were some pretty good coordinators there. I think
who was his defensive coordinator?
I think his name was Marcus. What was his last name?
Oh yeah, Marcus Freeman. Turns out he's a pretty good coach. Turns out he's a pretty good recruiter.
Yeah.
This is the other issue. And this is the problem that you run into a lot too. And this is not unique to college football. You see this in the NFL too, where you have the hot coordinator who gets the head coaching job, and you realize, oh wait, he wasn't good. Peyton Manning was a good quarterback, and he happened to be the coordinator. But like in this particular case with Fickell, could it be that Marcus Freeman was some of the secret sauce in terms of building those rosters at Cincinnati? I don't doubt Fickell's prowess as a recruiter. We saw it at Ohio State. He was awesome. And so I think he's probably a good recruiter, roster builder too.
Was it Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator on his team too?
That he was. That would be Mike Denbrock, who was the offensive coordinator at LSU with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors, and who was the OC at Notre Dame this year.
I didn't want to get through that point without mentioning that too, because
yes,
that's like it's
Mike Denbrock also key.
Yeah.
So that's the calculus you got to do when you're trying to figure out, do we dig this hole deeper, or do we say, you know what? We pay you fairly. You just roll with the 6 years you have on your deal instead of the 7. If you don't like that, you can lump it.
So what you're basically saying is that Ryan Grubb should be a head coach somewhere?
We don't know yet. Because sometimes you're a good coordinator, not a good head coach.
This is why search firms can charge millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, because nobody knows. Like, we didn't know Marcus Freeman was going to be a good head coach. Turned out he was.
Nobody knows anything, man. Nobody knows anything. And you know what? Like we're having this conversation as if like Fickell's cooked. Like he's one good year away.
He can coach his way out of this.
He's not. He definitely can coach his way out of it. I don't know if that's.
Let me ask you this, because it reminds me of something you say a lot. You talk about the concept of forced patience, that these giant buyouts cause forced patience. In this particular case, you're still forced into patience if you don't extend him. Like you still owe him $30 million if you've tried to fire him, if you hadn't extended him.
Yeah, they're like, yes, sir, may I have another? Like, that's what they did. Like, was that what they say in the military? Of like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't
do
know,
they
man.
need to
I
be
don't know.
forced into patience?
I think forced patience is good, but like also too, if you're already in forced patience mode, you don't have to make it worse.
Right. Right. If you had not extended him and this year goes very badly and you wanted to make a change, it would be a right at a $30 million buyout, which is probably too expensive, which you probably don't pay. So he's probably safe anyway. Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And producer River brings up Jeremy Pruitt getting extended the year before he got fired. Like, there was no reason to. Nobody was coming after him. Nobody was chasing him. Like, if you're not going to lose the person, you do not have to extend them. You don't. And here's the other part. That's $6.3 million that you're now on the hook for.
And I get the sense that like Wisconsin is just trying to be what Wisconsin used to be, which is a 10-2, 11-1 team, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I know that's not easy, but I mean, you could make the case that they're worse off this past year than they were when Paul Chryst got fired.
Paul Chryst was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they were. And they fired Paul Chryst, and I understood why they did, because the arrow was pointing down. But here's the thing. You just put yourself on the hook for $6.3 million more dollars that I'm gonna do the X percentage of marriages end in divorce, Ari, and go, you're probably gonna have to spend that at some point. You're probably gonna have to pay that, because that's just how these things usually work. Wouldn't that money be better spent on better players?
Yeah, you could just like rewrite the column that you wrote about Northwestern's NFL stadium that they're building.
Yeah.
About everything.
Yeah. Just buy better players. It's not that complicated. Like that, maybe that's, we talked about, doing some merch and having
buy better players.
Buy better players. Like, we make this so complicated. Like, it wasn't complicated in 1956 when they did it in duffel bags, or in 1996 when they did it in envelopes full of cash in the mailbox, or in 2008 when they went to the dentist's office that they weren't going to the dentist and somebody handed them an envelope. Like, it's not complicated. Buy better players. You're actually allowed to do that now. So instead of wasting your money on extensions that you're going to have to turn into giant buyouts down the road, buy better players now.
How did you get through that entire montage without bringing up McDonald's bags? Like, I don't know how you did it, but here we are.
And we just mentioned Jeremy Pruitt. I don't know.
McDonald's bags.
Yeah. Throw some cash in McDonald's bag, or you can now do it any way you want to, but buy better players.
Here's what you do. You get the Filet-O-Fish, and then you put the money on top of the Filet-O-Fish to keep it warm.
Well, listen, we're presented by Wendy's.
We are. Yeah, we are.
What do you, okay.
But Wendy's doesn't cheat. Okay? Wendy's doesn't cheat.
But it's not cheating anymore.
Well, yeah.
So
I'm just saying, at the time, it was cheating. And can you do
True.
NIL in a Wendy's bag?
I think you can now.
444 deal, and it's $444 per nugget.
I think if you got a Baconator, well, now you can just put a check in it, like, because nobody cares. You don't have, it doesn't even have to be cash. You can put a check with a 1099.
There has to be a Wendy's pun in there somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. So whatever bag you choose, give the bag to the players. Do not give the bag to the coach in buyout form, because procedurally you always extend your coaches every year. Like, if they're not winning the way you want them to win, don't reward them for it. This is not that complicated. Like, can you imagine our boss, Shannon Terry? Like, if we went to him and said, "Hey, Shannon, I realize we had a subpar year relative to what we've done in the past and what your companies have done in the past, but we're going to need another year on the contract and a raise." He just laughed at us.
Should we try it though?
Yes, we should definitely try it. I mean, like, as soon as the show's over.
I just texted him. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have a losing season. We had a winning season.
I thought we had a pretty good season. Yeah, I think that I don't know that it was a national title season though. We've got a long way to go. But I feel like
yes, we have work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we should definitely be extended one more year just in case.